Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Random. Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. Welcome aboard. Let's see who started. Who was the first one in the house? Let's see if the same one did it again. And yes, AVQ, el señor Michael Rutnin is numero uno from Brooklyn, New York. And Patrick Magner from Houston, Texas is in the house. Welcome aboard. We also have in the house Lisa Blair from Atlanta, Georgia. We don't have everybody in. Gail Forley, Cheryl, how you doing? Ellen, me, let's see, Candice, Harris, Renee. Patton says, hello, everyone. It's Renee Patton from Evanston, Illinois. It's good to be here with you. It's great to have you here. Hirut, Kiren, Marian, give me an update. What do you think about what's going on? I don't think I've heard your voice on this. Lynette from Northeast Pennsylvania is in the house. Thank you for being here. Joyce TX, Don is in. How you doing, Don, from Southern Maryland? Thank you for being here. We are at every single corner. Irut is from San Diego, California. So we are in the West Coast, East Coast, middle of the country, south of the country. We're everywhere. Anyway, folks, we got a lot to talk about. Today I've got a piece that I wrote on Iran. But beforehand, want to point out that, one of the big mistakes that Donald Trump and his crew is making, a mistake that was never made by Obama, a mistake that was never made by either of the Bushes, a mistake that was not made by Reagan, a mistake that was not made by any other president. The only time we attempted to put boots or machinery in Iran was when we thought we had no choice but to rescue our American people. And you see how that turned out? Not very well. And yes, it wasn't supposedly an attack from Iraq that actually brought down the helicopters that caused that mission to be aborted. The only time I think we had people dying on a mission to Iran. But one of the reasons why is there's something that many people don't understand. We buy the crap that we hear on TV here. We buy the crap that we hear these administrations speak about. And that is somehow they think they're messing with a third world country. They think they're messing with a whole bunch of nincompoops, people that are not studied, read, and engineers, scientists. We forget who the Ottoman Empire is. We forget all the things that these folks have done. And we believe our own rhetoric. And in believing our own rhetoric, we are costing America dearly. And you know what's interesting? We Hexets comes out like a little boy and talk about all these bombs blowing up and we have maximal power and all of that. And we knocked out their air defenses and we knocked out their communications and, sounds like they have supremacy and do as they please. And what has Iran started to do? Knock out their eyes, knock out their ability to see what is coming along. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. And Iran is not a dumb country. Don't you think they have been spying on areas in the the installations United States have around to monitor? And that they know how to take some of them out as well? Do you think that America will be able to flatten genocidally Iran like they did in the West Bank and Gaza? No, not at all. No lo van a poder hacer. Eso no se facciona. But before I get into Iran, I wrote a whole piece on that, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. But before we get there, we want to talk a little bit about the election uh, in Texas and North Carolina. We just have the headlines in North Carolina, and that is Cooper is going to be running for Senate. And, I think Cooper stands a very good chance. He was governor, which is a statewide race that he won. I think he has a good chance of becoming the next senator from North Carolina, and that will be a turnover. Does Caleb Talarico has the ability to win in Texas? I don't know. I supported I supported Crockett, but I'm satisfied with either one of them. I think some horrendous racial um, politics were played. But like I have told many of you in the speeches that I give in many places and in what I've said, the fallacy is that progressives are less racist than those on the right. That's a fallacy. Whenever progressives in any race need to use the racial card, they do. And whenever they need to use the scare tactics, they do. But um, you know, Miss Crockett is not a neophyte to this game, so she knows the game. And in some respects, I think she could have played the game a little bit differently to overcome the portion of the her vote that I think was racially inclined. In other words, the vote that she was used by either implied, implicit, or some sort of that thing, if you will. I think she could have done some things to overcome that she didn't. I mean, but again, the good thing about it is we have two good people that are running that ran, and I'm satisfied with either one of them. I'll be on, and I say this very much honestly. I am satisfied with either one of these guys. I will be supporting Talarico 100%. I will be anything that's asked of me within the framework of good activist journalism. I will do for Talarico. I interviewed Talarico, and I really enjoyed talking to Talarico. So so here's the deal. We have to look at the big picture. We're not going to solve all our social problems in an election cycle. So there are many people I know, and I'm speaking specifically now to black folk. Many would want to throw their hands up in the air and say, "Look at what they did to Jasmine." And let me just qualify this because a lot of folks that are listening would say, "Well, the race wasn't a racial thing," and I know, and I would understand why many would think that way because they don't understand. Hey, what's going on with my green screen? Come on, green screen, behave yourself. Many don't understand the cues. They don't understand the very well done dog whistles. They don't understand it. So let me say this. I will give you a few. Just the fact that they're saying, just the fact that they put out there, the Republicans want to run against her because they know, wink, wink, that's who they can beat. Many don't look at that as a dog whistle, but in the wordiology used, it is clear. When they did things like darken her skin, not that that should matter because, are you saying that the level of darkness of one skin determines your electability? The truth of the matter, it can. Unfortunately, it can, right? And these are things that they know. They know the cues to use, and Talarico, not Talarico himself, but the campaign did it. Do you think the thing with uh, Colbert was some accident. No, that wasn't an accident at all. That was pre-orchestrated. That thing with Colbert, and you know how I know it, because I have to abide by the FCC document at KPFT as a 501c3, and there was nothing legally when Colbert and those guys came out and said they didn't do it because they were told not to do it. The lawyers told them exactly what the case was, that and that was, if you're going to interview Talarico, uh, and Jasmine saw it and decided that she wanted you to do her, you had to as well. They got a twofer out of it. They spun it as if they weren't allowed to do it, and at the same time, they went and did it online. So there's so much, unless you're politically aware, and not only politically aware, but understand the dog whistles, etc., that you don't get it. Now that said, that wasn't the only reason. That was just a that I don't think that was worth more than 3 points, and she lost by 8 points or 7 points, somewhere around there. That the racial stuff is probably not worth more than 3 points. The problems with voting is definitely not worth more than 1 point. She lost the election because I don't think she made the case to South Texas. I don't think she made the case to. There's an interesting thing with Latinos, and being a Latino myself, I can really point that out, and that is, Latinos believe in the adjacency to, how should I say this without to say it the right way? There's a big phrase in Latinidad, especially here from Mexico, which it's one of the largest Latin groups here in the state. We got Cuban, Panamanians. All these are Latin folks of different hues, etc. But there's this stuff in the psyche of every Latino, and that many have been taught from birth, and it's something called mejorando la raza, and that means improving the race. And look, you guys are family. Everybody in my chat's family. So I'm just laying the dirty laundry out so that everybody understand it. My Latinos, my white people, my black people, all of that. There's nothing that Talarico said differently about protecting the honor of our Latino folks that was different or more profound than what uh, Crockett said. But the difference is, in a culture that is still paternalistic and white adjacent, what you find is that Talarico will get the benefit of the doubt, and Crockett will always get suspicion. And the suspicion comes from things like the angry black woman and the, it is all baked in. And one of and look, every black politician knows that, and you have to adjust your race, your political race, to account for that. And I think Crockett did a poor job in doing that, right? And look, it's not fair, but life is not fair. When they talk about what occurred in Dallas County with the with people not knowing where to vote and that being voter suppression, was that voter suppression? Of course it was. And but again, it's not like we did not know that was going to happen. So you have to mitigate those things. Let me give an example here. We know in November there's going to be a ton of voter suppression. They're going to make it more difficult to vote in areas that are predominantly Democratic. So what should Democrats do? Democrats should do a mass campaign of education and transportation and all of that. And to some extent, the Republicans figured that that's what they would do. And in passing the laws, they also included provisions that you cannot help other people vote here in Texas. And if you drive somebody to the polls, you cannot be telling, look, there are all kinds of voter suppression things in Texas that doesn't seem like voter suppression that we have to mitigate. And there are also a lot of Democratic politicians in Harris County in Texas with a big coffer, with a whole lot of money in the bank, that they have a choice of using that money to have mass education campaigns that is starting right now, so that what occurred in Dallas doesn't occur. I have a question. How much money does Talarico and Jasmine have in the bank right now? How many millions of dollars? How much would it take to educate a few people in critical areas of how to go to the right place to vote? I mean, how much would it have cost to get on the TV, to get on social media, to create applications? How much would it, let me say better, as a programmer myself, right? As somebody who writes programs. Why didn't we have if you want to know where to go vote, and by the way, these things are there, right? But the state didn't update Dallas County. The state did not update Dallas County as far as where to vote, since the Republicans said you had to go to your precinct. You couldn't go to vote at any locations like you could in Harris County or other places. They didn't do that. But you know who could have done that? The Dallas County Democratic Party. It does not take a lot. It does not take a lot to develop an app that with a whole lot of bandwidth that says you want to know where to vote, put Dallas County where to vote. And it comes up and it tells you exactly where to go. All of that is possible. But when you look at all these consultants that these people use, right? And I spoken to the Texas, the head of the Texas chair of the Democratic Party. Told him I was going to send him a note, something that many people know. I was going to send it anyway. And the idea of being the following. We can yes, there's going to be total voter suppression in Texas and many other red states. But we can mitigate that by making it easy for somebody to do something. Here's the deal. I could go ahead and do a Texas.vote or democratictexas.vote. Anybody wants to know where to vote, democratictexas.vote. And you have every precinct in the database, your address. You stick your address, your name, your address, and it tells you where. You stick your name and address, it tells you if you're registered to vote. We have the money if we so choose to do that. And notice what I said. Make it simple. A one simple phone app that allows you to do that. Not difficult. Completely get around the government to do it because the database is there. In Texas, I can put my name into a publicly available database and see if I'm registered to vote. That means then I can write an app that puts my name into that, see if I'm registered to vote, and do something with it. Now, Egberto Willis on his own don't have the bandwidth to develop and debug the application to do that. But with $1 million, that application can be developed, and we can buy a ton of bandwidth for another $1 million or so that keeps that application up for 6 months. It can be done. It can be done. We don't do it. Sometimes I wonder if it has to do with we just don't want to win too big for progressive. Because all these things are available. If I were running the Democratic Party in Texas right now, I would get that application developed and I would put that ad on public radio I would put that ad right through, all over, ready to go, ready to go. But we're not doing it. So when I look at, when people talk about voter suppression and racism and all these things, they're all true, but they are all mitigatable. It's no excuse. Those are not excuses to lose. Those are not, you know what's excuses to lose? Fraud. And the kind of fraud I'm talking about is actually going into the data and changing it. That now is something beyond the control, right? But in every precinct, there's a Democrat and a Republican. In every precinct, there's a Democrat and a Republican. So you can see if there's any externalities going on in a hanky panky when you go there. But in Texas, when we now have paper trails. So when I vote in Texas, I do all the votes that I want. I take it out. I get a piece of paper that shows me everybody that I voted for. And I turn that piece of paper in, and that piece of paper is associated to me. So, folks, voter suppression is real and it will affect us. Racism is real and will affect many races in many political races. But it's not an excuse to lose. You just have to overcome it. That's all. That's all you got to do. And that's what we got to do. So anyway, so Talarico, I think, is going to make a good senator. But remember, making a good senator don't mean he will be the good senator. Making a good senator means you will ensure that he is a good senator because you are going to keep the fire on him. So, folks, as far as Talarico is concerned, let's get ready. Let's support the brother. Let's make sure that brother wins in a landslide. Go Talarico. And I can't wait for the next step of Jasmine Crockett. I really have a lot of faith in her. I think she should have been the nominee. I think she would be the more knowledgeable and better fighter. And I think Jasmine Crockett could win Texas, not because they love her. Being a black woman, I think she would have been the first black woman elected statewide in Texas. Because by the time the election comes around, like I gave that story about Obama in Pennsylvania, that is the same story that she will represent here in Texas. All right, let's go to the next subject, and that has to do. First of all, if anybody has any commentary, let me see if anybody has anything to say about with voter restriction law from Don. With voter restriction laws, they're trying to pass. I bet they won't be implemented in the Republican voting districts. Why? Because we don't scrutinize them like they do. Now, here's the thing, though. What happens is the following, right? Um, a lot of these laws that they want to pass are going to actually hurt Republicans. Let me give an example. The stuff about voter ID. I dare them to pass voter ID because in all the places where you have the most people with missing their birth certificate and not being able to find stuff are in rural areas, the thousands of rural precincts, right? That these people don't have their birth certificates, etc. So, hoping by having a voter ID that requires your birth certificate, it's going to hose them. What you have to make sure is that the law doesn't put an exception in there for rural areas. Like they may put an exception in there is like if it's a clear and present, if it presents a hardship for people living X miles away from a place, they get a reprieve. If you put wordage like that in the laws, that would be a problem, right? So that is what we have to run against. But anyway, so we can mitigate this, Don. We can mitigate this. Let's see what else we got here. Bobby K says the trick will be making this defranchised majority to realize that they can make a change instead of not voting because they no longer care, having nothing to lose. Man, Bobby, that is so true. You have to let people understand that their vote does matter. That is very true. All right. If I missed any thing, you can always give me a call 281-823-7747. 281-823-7747. Michael says yes. A few things to say on FB. Yes. Let's see what else. What do you have to say on FB? Weapon CEOs run amok in White House, and Lockheed Martin and Raytheon will Friday ask for another $50 billion, and we should say no. But they'll find the money for the bombs. They just won't find the money for the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act. But they'll find the money for the bomb. Leader Bearcat says, Egberto, should a terror country be able to have nukes? Who defined them as a terror country? What makes Iran a terror country and not us? I'm going to ask you to enumerate something for me, Leader Bearcat. How many countries have Iran bombed this year? Or rather, let's in the last 12 months. And then I'm going to ask you, how many countries have the United States bombed in the last 12 months? And then tell me, please, who is the country invoking terror on others? The 200 people that died in Venezuela, did they deserve to die? Did these innocent civilians who bombs scraped, did they deserve to die? We inflicted terror on them to pick up Maduro. And then we kept Delcy Rodriguez and everybody else in there under the pretext that he's exporting drugs to the United States, which is a lie, number one. And number two, if the United States people want to buy drugs, it's a free country. If we decide drugs are illegal and Americans want to buy drugs, don't bomb the country giving you the drugs. Go to the Americans who are buying the drugs and either arrest them or do something to stop it. Don't use it. Costs so much more money to go kill boats that you claim are running drugs, which they are mostly not. Again, we have it all back answered. No, we have terrorized. And look, I'm an American. I'm a proud American for the American people, not the American military industrial complex. But if you want to know who inflicts terror on the world, it's us. We bombed Nigeria. We bombed Venezuela. We bombed Gaza. We bombed Iran. We bombed all these boats in the ocean. Egberto, as it comes to international polls regarding countries threatening world peace, the U.S., Russia, and China are number 1, 2, and 3. Let's stop. Why is China in there? Please tell me the last place that China bombed. Please tell me the last place that China invaded. Let's be accurate. I don't even know where those numbers come from. Russia, I understand. The United States, I understand. But please tell me, what foreign country has China bombed? What foreign country has China invaded? China is involved with belts and roads. They are coercive. They're a coercive government. In other words, I will come into your town. Okay. Again, you said they're in there because of the China. What have they done? We have actually bombed. We have actually done something. China has not bombed Taiwan. We have bombed Iran. We have bombed Venezuela. We have bombed the boats in the ocean. I mean, we have bombed Gaza. Let's be honest here. That's where we need to begin from an honest viewpoint. We are the only country that is in a perpetual state of war. And it cost us. But let's go ahead and do the subject that I have at hand, because that is what I really, really want to talk about. I wrote it up a few minutes ago before we started the program. The United States once again dropped bombs on Iran, even though Iran has not launched any recent unprovoked attack on America. That matters. Under international law and basic moral reasoning, war is supposed to be at the last resort, not the first reflex. Yet, The United States now conducts more military operations and bombing campaigns around the world than any other nation. While China expands trade routes, infrastructure, and economic partnerships through projects like Belt and Road, Washington continues to expand conflict zones. And every new war has a familiar beneficiary. And who is that again? The defense contractors and the military industrial complex. The same politicians who claim there's no money for Medicare for all, no money for child care, no money for paid family leave, suddenly find hundreds of billions of dollars for bombs. The question Americans must ask is simple. Do we want a country that builds prosperity or one that constantly manufactures war? That is something that we should be asking over and again, over and again. Let's get it. Let's get some points over. Iran has not launched a recent unprovoked attack. U.S. intelligence assessments repeatedly state U.S. intelligence assessment repeatedly state that Iran has not attacked the American homeland. The last direct military confrontation involved regional tensions and proxy conflicts, not an Iranian assault on U.S. territory. International law restricts unilateral military attacks. So, under the United States Charter, or rather, I should say the United Nations Charter, guess what, folks? Under that charter, military force is legal only in self defense against an armed attack or with UN Security Council authorization. Preventative, coercive bombing campaigns without those conditions violate international terms. The United States conducts more overseas military operations than any other nation. The US maintains roughly, and hear this, because people balk when we say this and wonder why. We maintain roughly 750 to 800 US military bases abroad across more than 70 countries, according to research from Brown University. Cost of war project. No other country operates a comparable global military footprint. The U.S. is engaged in continuous bombing campaigns for decades. American forces have bombed or conducted airstrikes in countries including Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, Somalia, Yemen, Pakistan, and others since 2001. Should we add Venezuela, boats off the Caribbean? The scale of operations dwarf those of any other nation, bar none. Bar none. Okay? War spending enriches the military industrial complex. Listen to this. Major defense contractors such as Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, and Boeing receive hundreds of billions in pending contracts. Defense spending exceeds, listen, $800 billion annually, larger than the next several countries combined. War funding competes with social investment. The Congressional Budget Office repeatedly notes that the federal budget reflects priorities. Massive military appropriations occur alongside claims that programs like universal health care, child care support, and paid family leave are too expensive. So, it is too expensive to keep you healthy, but it's not too expensive to build bombs and go kill people around the world. I mean, if this isn't backassword, I don't know what is. Economists link military spending to opportunity cost. What is opportunity cost? Opportunity cost means if I had the opportunity to use what I'm spending here to do this, what means spending there have cost me, right? Studies from the Cost of War Project estimates the post 9/11 wars have cost the United States, listen to this number, $8 trillion, funds that could have financed major domestic investments in healthcare, infrastructure, and education, albeit it could have been used to reduce the debt. China's global strategy focused heavily on economic expansion. Through the Belt and Road Initiative, China finances infrastructure projects, ports, railways, and energy systems in dozens of countries. The strategy emphasizes trade, logistic networks, and economic partnership rather than military campaigns. Look, China is not doing this because China is nice. Nobody's a fool. Nobody sits back and think, "Oh my God, China is such a benevolent country." No, they're not. But they understand one thing: if I build, I can be much more successful around the world than if I blow crap up. And what we have done is our macho. One of the reasons I want a real woman president, is one that can nurture. Look, I listen to this. Regime change wars have historically produced instability. Should we forget Iraq? Should we forget Afghanistan? Examples such as Iraq and Libya demonstrate that military intervention intended to reshape governments often destabilize entire regions, creating humanitarian crisis and long-term security. And we're already starting to see that with Iran. What did Iran do? Iran went ahead and said, okay, you are going to come here and bomb me to smithereens. You're going to use Israel to help, and you're going to use the services of Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates. You're going to also use Oman and all these other countries as staging. So what are we going to do? Okay, you do that. We're going to disrupt all these oil producing countries. Because you know what? While you blowing us up, we're going to blow stuff up that you depend on. And then that affects all United States citizens, all European citizens. And what we're starting to get to is a global conflict. Started from a whole bunch of inept neophytes that are trying to use military power to do something where military power doesn't belong. It's shameful. Now, the moral legitimacy matters in global leadership. And while I use China as an example because, again, I ask, where is the last country, foreign country that is, that you've seen China use its military to bomb and to maim? And the same applies to Iran and others. We blast all of the times. These countries are belligerent. This country is doing that. You have to wonder, why is it that we always have to look at it from that conflict point of view? Why? Why do we have to do that? And you wonder if this is not to feed the defense industrial complex. International credibility weakens when a country promotes democracy while bypassing international law and congressional authorization to wage war. Sustainable security depends on diplomacy, cooperation, and economic engagement, not perpetual bombing, folks. So here's the deal, and then I'm going to close here. Let's step back and confront the deeper issues. The United States has convinced itself that it has the authority to bomb any country it chooses in the name of security or stability. But international law does not grant that right, and neither does morality. When a nation decides it can force political change through missiles rather than diplomacy, it erodes the very global order it claims to defend. And the consequences are not abstract, not at all. Every war drains resources that could improve life at home. The same political system that claims universal health care is too expensive approves military budgets approaching $1 trillion. The same leaders who say we cannot afford childcare, family leave, or affordable housing rarely hesitate to fund another bombing campaign. Meanwhile, the rest of the world watches two very different models of global engagement. One approach sends bombers and sanctions. The other sends infrastructure finances, trade deal, and economic development projects. Whether one agrees with China's political system or not, its global strategy focuses largely on commerce rather than constant warfare. Americans must confront a difficult truth. We all must do that, folks. Endless war does not make the country safer. Endless war does not make us moral. Endless war does not prove we have bigger pelotas than anybody else. It enriches contractors, expands the power of the national security state, and diverts resources from the people who actually make the nation work. The real test of leadership is not how many wars a country can fight. It is whether it has the wisdom to choose diplomacy, cooperation, and investment in human well-being instead of another round of bombs. Folks, we can do better. We can do better. But it takes all of us. All of us have to use our sphere of reference, our sphere of influence to make that change. And without that, folks, this will continue over and again. This is like rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. That is what we're doing. This looks no different than our first approach to Iraq when we went in. The only difference here is that the line was done with a face that actually had a reputation before he lost his reputation to lying to the United Nations. And that was Colin Powell. Let's get real, folks. Let's get real. All right, Tom Cruise. Is this my Tom Cruise, who's my right wing buddy who has a trucking company? If it's you, I haven't heard from you in a while, Tom Cruise. Let's see what else we have here. Let me go into the chat now and see what my brothers and sisters are saying. Lee the Bearcat said, Berto, no, I answered that already. E2247, I answered that already. Will Jasmine loan Talarica her monies? I don't know. Ask her. I don't know. Tom Cruise says, how do you already know who minorities are going to vote for? I don't. In fact, I know who you are going to vote for. You're a MAGA guy. You continue to vote against the interest of most people that matter, that really need you to vote in their interest. But it's okay, Tommy. You know I have a lot of work to do with you. Lena Bearcat says, how about one day voting? Everyone gets off work. That is fair, right? Make it a holiday. Lena Bearcat, I agree with you. I agree with you. We'd have, for those people who work shift work, we'll have to make adjustment. Like we'd have to make it a full 24-hour open so that everybody can vote. But I'm with you there, Lena Bearcat. Let's see what else. E2247 says 47 regime and its legislative authorities claim Iran's missile and drone launch capacity is declining. The broader strategic picture shows conflict is expanding geographically, politically, and economically. $20,000 Iranian Shahed drones just took out two of the billion-dollar terminals, a high-altitude area defense. Yeah, I heard that. Imagine that. The air defense folks, it was just taken out by two cheap. And by the way, they say $20,000 for those each of those drones. I think it's substantially less than that. I don't know where they got the $20,000 from. I don't know if they're including development costs, etc. But here's the thing. Iran makes some of the best drones on the planet. Again, we're talking about great engineers here. I worked with Iranian engineers, and the reason I say that, right, is I went to school with Iranian students going for engineers. I never remember Parveen. She was a good friend of mine. Both of us worked at the pizza shop. She was in engineering, great, as smart as a tack. And the reason why is a lot of these countries, in the case of Iran, they had a good educational system. In the case of other places like Panama and all of that, if you are lucky to have had a great high school education, you'll come to the States and terrorize this place with regards to how far ahead. Like when I came to the States from my high school, my first few years in college was a cakewalk. It was such a cakewalk that when it became difficult, it really became difficult because, again, when you don't exercise those minds, it's a bad thing. All right, E2247 also said the third THAAD is in Korea. being shipped to replace the second that were just destroyed. So note that in West Pacific China Sea region. Again, look at what Hexet's costing us, guys, and look at what they're costing us, right? They're costing us our defenses because they thought they were messing with a third world country. E2247 says $20,000 Iranian Shahed drones just to. Oh, I read that already. All right. Rudnin says China is on there because of the South China Sea. Yeah, but they shouldn't be. They really should not be on that. Patrick says military analysis assumes that Venezuela made a strategic retreat and we should expect a future attack from them. You know, I let me back up. I have no doubt about that. Okay, the Bolivarian revolution has never stopped, and they don't measure time in years or months. They measure time in decades. So you're absolutely right about that, Patrick. ABQ says in 2025, Trump bombed Iran, Iraq, Nigeria, Somalia, Syria, Yemen, Venezuela. Right. And let's see, how many did China do again? How many did Iran do again? There you go. All right. China is spelling its name in English using a C, an H, and an INA, unforgivable and worthy of condemnation. Sigh. Huh? You lost me there. Is there something that I'm missing? Maybe I'm not educated enough to know that China has a different way of spelling in English. I don't know. Maybe that's it. Teresa O'Rourke says it's the first time she's here. Thank you so kindly for being here, Teresa O'Rourke. Love having you here. If you're still here, I hope you're still here. Drop me a line if you're still here. ABQ says Lee out of context. Okay, I'm not going to go into the conversation between you and Lee. Lee the Bearcat says China's debt infrastructure extending rescue loans to middle income countries with large projects. Pakistan, Venezuela. Yes, they're actually developing the line in the Orinoco in Venezuela, as I recall, while taking a harder line on repayment and with smaller, poor borrowers. No different than what the World Bank has been doing to the all our third world countries by forcing them into austerity. You know, come on now. Let's be real. Let's be real. Le Danube, welcome, welcome, welcome. Egberto, true dollar cost is well above $1 trillion annually. You know that, or you should learn more about it. I know that, sir. The $800 billion is a tacit amount, but it's not. It doesn't reflect 2024 because 2025, which has already passed $1 trillion. The actual budgetary amount over $1 trillion. All right, Agolf Twitler. Agolf Twitler says, para ver, Trump bombed 8 different nations in his first year, more than any other president in U.S. history, and illegally declared war on Iran. In his first year, the guy who ran on the no new wars. Exactly. What have we got here from Leader America? As President Clinton, I will take whatever actions are necessary to protect the U.S. and our allies. I will not hesitate to take military actions if Iran attempts to obtain a nuclear weapon. Again, like I said, I think if if we knew that Iran had a nuclear weapon, just like we leave North Korea alone, Trump went into a saber rattling about North Korea, never did a damn thing. You know why? Because North Korea has the bomb. I think it would be in the Middle East interest if Iran got the bomb. Look, I'm just working from experience here. I'm simply going from experience because the United States just going in willy nilly. And look here, this is being pro American. If you are pro American, if you're pro your country, we should be going completely against what Donald Trump has done. If you believe in the sovereignty of America, if you believe in the morality of America, if you believe that we are a country of values, you can't, you cannot be in favor of this war, and you should be actively working against what Donald Trump and his thugs are doing. Elizabeth Koromoto Raven. Hey, Elizabeth, how you doing, beautiful? She says Venezuela can lose a battle to win the long run, which is diplomacy. Exactamente, mi amiga. Estás correcta. All right, 1 trillion of the cost of this war will be paid by the Medicaid cuts by Trump. Yeah, yeah. E2247 says, Gilberto, I apologize for being snarky about house bill in China. Justifies hate in China. My bad. I hear you, my brother. I hear you. Hirut Kiran Marian says, but Iran and it's against their religion to obtain nuclear bombs. You know, these countries use religion whenever they need it. It's against Netanyahu's religion to do everything that he's doing right now, decimating and evicting a genocide on Gaza is against everybody's religion. Although, if you follow what God purportedly told, not Moses, but Aaron, go into the promised land and kill every man, woman, and child. Oh, the world is an interesting place. The world is an interesting place. Bobby K says, the fact so many people still blindly following Trump sucks. It's sad, real. You know why they're still following? Let me give you a reason why. Because those of us telling the truth, it's hard to get our message out. Those of us that don't temper the truth, especially now with AI, etc. Look at my count on Substack, 71. Go look at somebody else that's talking marginally. You know, I've got 23,000 free subscribers. Listen to me, guys. I have 23,000 plus free subscribers that are supposed to get a notification every time we go live. Every time I send an email out, about 30% of people actually read it. Each one, different people. So if I send out 10 emails, by that 10 emails, all of my 23,000 people have seen the email, right? Let me announce that Cheryl Elkins, Cheryl Elkins has the, reminding us to sign up. Guys, look, please sign up. I don't know how many people have signed up with Cheryl yet, but there is the Zoom. Please go ahead and go to the Zoom. It's tinyurl.com/coffee with Egberto. It is free. Let me tell you, I want to thank all of you who donated to KPFT. We made the $181,000 that the station need. By the way, I want to let all of you know, all that money went to KPFT. Zero came to me. If you want to support me, you have to go to my PayPal, or you have to become a paid subscriber of my newsletter. I get none of that. My only support comes from the people who support the program that we're doing here, not the one at KPFT. I donate to KPFT and I present that program to KPFT absolutely as a volunteer because I want to get the message out. But if you want to support what we do here and including subsidizing the work I am doing at KPFT and elsewhere, please become a paid subscriber. And by the way, everybody, what Cheryl is doing for is free. Cheryl gave quite a few ducats to KPFT. We needed it badly, and she obliged. And she said, for that, Egberto, you got to do a Zoom coffee. So we're doing a Zoom coffee, courtesy of Cheryl Elkins, one of our great activists in Massachusetts. So please sign up. It's tinyurl.com/coffee. tinyurl.com/coffee with Egberto. tinyurl.com/coffee with Egberto. Hey, Patrick just gave me a super chat. Thank you, brother. Character holding their head in their hands, saying incredible. I love you, Patrick. You know that, right? Thank you, my brother. As I say, Patrick always put his money where his mouth is. I'm going to tell people what's happening with you too, Patrick. look, we have all these functions at KPFT. I don't go to because these are functions to raise money at KPFT. And there's a crawfish boil, it's $75 a head. And I wasn't going to the thing because again, I have to watch my ducats. I have to fly out to Netroots Nation in June for our conference. So I have to watch what I get. What supports what we do is what you guys provide. And Patrick just called up and said, Berto, I'm taking you and your wife to the crawfish boil. And I'm like, no, man, that's too much. I don't want you to. Da, da, da. I am taking you to the crawfish boil. I want to meet your wife. I want to know who the hell puts up with you. So I tell my brother Patrick, all right, man. Okay, man. Me and my wife will be out there at the crawfish boil and we'll be there with you, your girlfriend, and your brother. All right. So, I mean, we have great people that do a lot of support here. So I just wanted everybody to know that, Patrick. I think it's deserving of everybody. So please sign up for the Coffee with Egberto. It's free, paid for by Cheryl Elkins. It is tinyurl.com/coffee with Egberto. And ask Cheryl, I'm a nice guy. It's going to be a pleasant conversation. And Cheryl says she's not going to force you to turn your camera on, right, Cheryl? You're not going to force anybody to turn their camera on. So if they just want to be there, be there. But sign up. Please sign up, por favor. It's going to be this Friday coming up at 6 Pacific, not 6, but 6 Central, right? Yeah. Let me make sure I have it right. At 7 Central, 7 Central, between 7 and 9 Central. Sign up, even if you can only make the first hour or the second hour or both. And if we go over, you know me, no problem. All right. You got to talk to Cheryl about that. But again, please go ahead and sign up. Lynette said, thank you, Egberto. Thank you, all those who participated. Have a great day, my Substack family. Thank you for having been here, Lynette. All right, folks, it's coming down to the end of the day. It's time for us to go. Want to ask you to, again, please become a paid subscriber. It's easy to do that. Go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. And that will give you the option to become a subscriber and a paid subscriber. I'm putting that in the chat. And I'm going to put that in the Substack chat. But if you're already on Substack, just click that subscribe and say, I am going to give you a coffee. I'm going to give you a coffee. And if you are like one of our listeners who have quite a bit of ducats, consider becoming a what we call we have a higher level for those who want to become. I forgot what I call it. It's called like a founding member. Become a founding member. It really helps us keep doing what we are doing here. Okay, I'm glad you came here. Please share and please encourage others to show up. We get throttled all over. I'm just letting you know. We get throttled all over. And the reason we do this, we started asking, hey, did you get a notification? Did you get a notification? Most people didn't. So they don't know we're on. Unless they scroll by and see, oh, he's on. And then they come. Anyway, love you all. From the depths of my heart, my name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am, what again? I am out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.